welcome. This is presentation number 12 in our series Rereading the Fourth Gospel. This Gospel tells the story of Jesus, the Revealer, and our topic today is Revelation as Salvation, or Salvation as Revelation. You can put it either way. And we are getting into the thick of it now, and so we need to set the stage first with a few introductory scenes. So after the raising of Lazarus in Bethany with the two sisters mourning, we are now transitioning to chapter 12. That was in chapter 11. And here in chapter 12 we read 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, the home of Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. When the great crowd of the Jews learned that he was there, they came not only because of Jesus, but also to see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. So the chief priests planned to put Lazarus to death as well, since it was on account of him that many of the Jews were deserting and were believing in Jesus. So now the fronts have hardened. There is clearly a significant opposition to Jesus. 6 days before Passover is 6 days to go before Jesus will die, because he will now die during this Passover week. So we are going up to more acute, more should I say, intimidating scenes in the story. And then we have my illustration here from the 15th or 15th century. This is a two-level illustration. Here, Lazarus is raised from the dead. And here is this celebration, this party that has been held after that. And there is a woman who anoints Jesus' feet. It's Mary who does that. And we are actually skipping that story. We will return to it a little later in our series. So was there anything else? Yes, of course, it is strange that someone has been raised from the dead, and someone has raised a person from the dead, and that there is now a plan to do away with the one who was raised and with the one who raised him. We are also leaving that and just for our own contemplation. And then we read on the next day, the great crowd that had come to the festival heard that Jesus was coming to Jerusalem. So they took branches of palm trees and went out to meet him, shouting, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, the King of Israel." So in this moment here, Jesus is hailed as King, and he will a few days later die on a cross. So that's a very demanding contrast there. And then we have a timeline. So there was a party, and then there was the next day this happens. And this is usually thought of as Palm Sunday. Jesus riding on a donkey into Jerusalem and being greeted as a king. And then we have a commentary on this event. This is, by the way, Rubens' illustration of the riding into Jerusalem on a donkey and being greeted as a king. Let's read on. So the crowd that had been with him when he called Lazarus out of the tomb and raised him from the dead continued to testify. So there is an aftermath here. People witnessed it, they talked about it, and it doesn't, it raises the interest in Jesus, raises his influence, as it were. It was also because they heard that he had performed this sign that the crowd went to meet him. So some people are there because they had seen it. some people are there because they have heard about it. And then the Pharisees then said to one another, you see, you can do nothing. Look, the world has gone after him. So they are not happy about this support, interest in Jesus. The idea that they can do nothing is something you have to take with a grain of salt. Something will be done, and it will be violent. You can do nothing of benign things. This is coming to a head, and something more serious or more definitive has to be done. And now, with this introduction, we have reached the text that will interest us the most. We are now in the Gospel of John, chapter 12, and we are reading from verse 20. Now among those who went up to worship at the festival were some Greeks. Passover festival. They came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida in Galilee, and said to him, Sir, we wish to see Jesus. Philip went and told Andrew. Then Andrew and Philip went and told Jesus. Now, we are rereaders, aren't we? Or we are using prior awareness. We are looking back and forth in the story. And here we can retreat or go back to chapter 1, where we met these people for the first time. We met Philip in chapter 1. We met Andrew in chapter 1. And we heard of Bethsaida in chapter 1. So there is a kind of a new beginning here, a new start. It's like you have chapter 2 of the story. And some scholars have taken this to mean probably more than they should. They think that the Gospel of John existed as kind of 2 volumes, 2 phases, that there was first a Gospel of signs, of the things Jesus did, the miracles, that includes through chapter 11, the Gospel of signs. And then, beginning in chapter 12, we are starting to read what they call the Gospel of glory. So the Gospel of signs, the Gospel of glory, two different books almost. Now that view has not held up. I think that the view is definitely on the wane. But there is a sense of a new beginning here. Jesus has been a local figure until now. Now he will go global. There were some Greeks who came to the festival. Whether these so-called Greeks are real Gentiles, or whether they are Jews living in diaspora, living abroad, can be debated. But this is a new stage. There were some Greeks, there were some people who do not belong to the local community or to Israel proper, and they would like to see Jesus. That is the point. And they will see him. Now we will read on. Jesus will now say in verse 23, I have not skipped a single verse here. This is what Jesus says when Philip and Andrew come and tell Jesus. Jesus answered them, the hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. And we see here that there is a clock, that we have a sort of timing of the story, and let's review that. So here again with our clock and with these verses to keep us abreast, to keep us updated. At the wedding, my hour has not yet come. In a temple scene in Jerusalem later, then they tried to arrest him, but no one laid hands on him because his hour had not yet come. Somewhat later, but no one arrested him because his hour had not yet come. So the concept of the hour is very central here. And we have more, because this notion of the hour will also figure in Jesus' speech just on the eve before he dies. Now, before the festival of the Passover, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world and to go to the Father. And again, here in what is called Jesus' prayer, high priestly prayer or priestly prayer, after Jesus had spoken these words, he looked up to heaven and said, Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son, so that the Son may glorify you. So here we see time is running out, and we have arrived at the hour. That's where we are. And we have been on a journey. We have been on a journey to the hour, to what Jesus called my hour, beginning here at the wedding, and then many scenes. I just have highlighted the ones where he says, my hour has not yet come, or his hour had not yet come. But here we are. We have come to the hour. And looking ahead, we have been looking ahead to that for some time, because in a comment on the meaning of the miracle at the wedding, Gail O'Day says the beginning and ending are both in view in the Cana miracle. And John Ashton, one of the great John scholars of our time, he says, so Jesus performs a miracle, more than a miracle, a sign. And it is in this miracle, symbolically foreshadowing something strange, new, marvelous, that Jesus' glory is seen for the first time. So his glory is seen at the wedding, and then we're heading for a bigger revelation of the glory. Had it not been seen, there would have been no glory. Doxa, the word for glory, is a relationship word. It implies revelation. So I'm going to be showing that revelation is salvation, salvation is revelation, and these are terms for revelation, and this is Gail O'Day. I have shown you her picture before. So let's just think about this for a moment. Let's just sort of try to attune our imagination to what this gospel is leading us up to. So the journey started at the wedding, where there was no wine, and then there was plenty of wine and very much of it. So the not yet was a wedding. What will the hour be? The not yet was joy, a happy occasion. What will be the mood of the hour? And the not yet brought abundance. What will the hour be? Let me take it one step further. Will the hour be a contrast to what we experience at the wedding? Or will it be a culmination of the same thing, a higher level of what was seen at the wedding? And joy and abundance will not be absent. Those are some thoughts. I want to do one more. Not yet, not yet, and not yet. And now we are there. There is also here a progression, a procession, you might even say, a procession of the term glory. Here we have the signs, some of the signs we have seen on the way. Water into wine, healing the blind man, feeding the 5,000, healing the lame man here, the blind man here, and raising Lazarus here, and now the death of Jesus. These are the signs. And then we have some features of these signs. We have an abundance of wine here. We have a man who has been ill for 38 years. Tremendous abundance. Here, tremendous need. 12 baskets left over. Abundance again. Here, blind from birth. Tremendous need. The deepest and the highest, you might say. And we have a man who has been buried for 4 days, raised to life. So those are features, and they are all elements in the theme of glory, that this gospel uses, and I have only excerpted some verses here, not by any means all of them. So we're going to look at that a little closer. Now we are reading on in our text. A strange sort of explanation here. Jesus will say in chapter 12, 24 and 25, "Very truly I tell you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains just a single grain. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. Those who love their life will lose it, and those who hate their life in this world will keep it for eternal life." These are strange comments, but it is true, isn't it? That a grain has to fall into the earth to multiply. That is true. That is how it works in life. That is, in some ways, the logic of life. And Jesus is using that analogy to say that he will die, but it will be life-giving. And he is asking his disciples to buy into that logic. We're reading on, verse 27. "Now my soul is troubled, and what should I say? Should I say, 'Father, save me from this hour'? No, it is for this reason I have come to this hour." So Jesus talks as though he has had a consciousness all along where he is going. This is why he came. And you might say, we will notice that there is no Gethsemane story in the Gospel of John. There is a big one in all the other three Gospels. The closest we get to Gethsemane here is Jesus saying, "Should I say, 'Father, save me from this hour'?" In the other Gospels, he seems actually to say that. "Save me from this hour." But here he won't say it, and this is El Greco's painting of Gethsemane, and this is Gethsemane as it looks today, with some very, very old olive trees there. So Bultmann, who I revere as an interpreter of the text in the Gospel of John, although not all the things, all the beliefs he has about it, but here he has an excellent comment. What is the right word, the right prayer for this hour? What is the right meaning of this hora, which is the Greek word for hour? The hora is the hour of death, the hour in face of which human fear trembles, and from which human fear desires to be rescued. Pater, soson me ectes horas tautes, save me from this hour. Is such a desire the right answer for the question of this hour? Save me from this hour. And then there is an emphatic no. Jesus answers his own question. Should I ask, save me from this hour? I'm not going to ask it. Now we move on, and the text is quite strange because it deals in language and concepts that are not usual to us. So it begins with Jesus saying here in the next verse, "Father, glorify your name." From talking to people in the audience, he now talks to God. He now talks upwards. "Father, glorify your name." Then a voice came from heaven, "I have glorified it, and I will glorify it again." Suddenly, Jesus is having a conversation with heaven, with the Father, and we get to hear what both of them are saying. And the crowd doesn't get it. The crowd standing there heard it and said that it was thunder. Others said an angel has spoken to him. These are very strange things. This is very strange language. And we have more of it later, and you will see here that I have underlined the word that is strange and difficult for us to to grasp. When he had gone out, Jesus said, "Now the Son of Man has been glorified." This is a little later, and at the Last Supper. When he, that's Judas, had gone out, Jesus said, "Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him." If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself and will glorify him at once. That's a strange language. Glorifying God, glorifying Jesus. After Jesus had spoken these words, this is a little later again, he looked up to heaven and said, "Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son, so that the Son may glorify you." And we have looked earlier in our dictionary at these words. The word doxa for glory, the word doxazo, the verb for glorify. And we had two options. One option, to influence one's opinion about another, so as to enhance the latter's reputation. Honor, good reputation. That is glory. If you have glory, you have a good reputation. Reputation is not the same as character. Sometimes we have good reputations and bad characters. Sometimes we have good characters, like God, and bad reputations. Sometimes there has been damage done undeservedly to a person's reputation. And when you glorify that person, you restore that person's reputation to its rightful state. You take back, someone has lost his good name, and you retrieve, you win back that person's God's name. That is the most important meaning of glorify, to have a good reputation, to restore to that person his good reputation. There is another sense too, and it isn't absent in the Gospel of John, to cause to have splendid greatness, to have visible splendor. That is also in there, but it is not the main thing here. So did we get that? To glorify is to speak well of someone. To glorify is to make that person get the kind of status, the kind of reputation that that person deserves. And then we read on. We are now reading from verses 31 through 33. Now is the critical moment of this world. Now the ruler of this world will be expelled, Jesus says, and I am explaining that term that is used. He will be exposed, laid bare, stripped naked. Those are terms that would what will happen to the ruler of this world. And when I am lifted up from the earth, I will draw all people to myself. He said this to signify the kind of death he was to die. And here are two more verses about the ruler of this world. Jesus says a little later, I will no longer talk much with you, for the ruler of this world is coming, but over me he has no power. And when he says a little later, when he, the Paraclete, the Holy Spirit, comes, he will correct the world concerning sin and righteousness and judgment. About judgment, because the ruler of this world has been judged. So there is a figure here that is called the ruler of this world, and Jesus is now at what the Gospel of John calls his hour. He will go head to head with that person, with that power, and will expel him, expose him, and lay him bare, as it were. So I will do a little digression here and refer to an article written by Judith Kovacs. I'm sorry that my picture is so poor. That was the best I could do. She died last year. She was a professor at the University of Virginia, a New Testament professor. She died of pancreatic cancer, I just discovered, and I'm very sorry about that. She wrote an amazingly good article in the Journal of Biblical Literature in 1995, and I will read an explanation here. The story this gospel has to tell concerns the battle between God and Satan, a battle acted out in the sphere of human history. John 12:31, together with the closely related passages in John 14:30-31 and 16:8-11, I have just read those passages to us, suggest that the fourth evangelist sees the death, resurrection, and ascent of Jesus as the turning point in the conflict between God and the forces of evil. And I think that is totally perceptive, totally on the money, as it were. And I have used it at some length in a chapter that I contributed to this book on the Gospel of John and Christian theology. This was based on a conference held at the University of St. Andrews in about a little less than 15 years ago. This book was published in 2008 by Erdmans, and one of the editors, Richard Bauckham, who I have said before is a leading scholar on John. And I have my little chapter here, and the title of my chapter is The Father of Lies. That is Satan. The Mother of Lies. That is what Satan said. The lies, the liar, and what the lie was all about. Father of lies, the mother of lies, and the death of Jesus. And I looked again on Amazon just to see when some people have commented, and here is a comment. I just thought I could read that. It made me feel good for about 3 minutes. There are some fantastic articles with rich and meaningful commentary on the issues. Tonstad's article was incredible, and his perspective on the necessity of the cross was not only intellectually stimulating but very compelling and moving. I would buy this volume for the Tonstad article alone. Well, that's amazing, because in the volume there are chapters by Jürgen Moltmann, Martin Hengel, Richard Bauckham, Miroslav Wolf, some of the people who are the who is who in biblical studies and in New Testament theology. And here is little me also with a chapter that I actually think makes a contribution to our understanding of the Gospel of John. Well, someone did read my chapter, obviously, and no less a person than Joanne Brandt did so, and actually uses it in her commentary. And this is a commentary. I think it's an excellent commentary. I would have used it even if she didn't use my chapter in it, but she did. And I would like to explain something from what she says about it. So the issue is to explain the cross, to explain the death of Jesus. And we have headed to an explanation that says that Jesus goes forth in order to defeat the father of the lie and defeat the lie itself, what I call the mother of lies, which is a metaphor, of course. And so here is what Joanne Brandt says. The problem that many theologians have with setting Jesus' reference to the ruler of this world within the context of a cosmic battle, she's not entirely comfortable with that. That is the view I am defending and promoting for how the gospel says that. The problem with that, she says, is that this grants too much salvific import to the crucifixion and not enough to the revelation of the truth. I really respect her, but that is not a good idea to put those two as though they are competing emphases, as though there is one crucifixion and then there is revelation of the truth. The crucifixion is the revelation of the truth. You cannot make those contrast those. That is a mistake, I would say, and I don't mean to criticize her, but it is an inadequate assessment of what is going on in the story. And then she tries to have it a little bit both ways, so that's good. This does not mean that the ruler of this world cannot be a reference to Satan. Now she grants something that I think she should. In John, Satan is the father of lies. Jesus' victory, however, again a little weak here, lies not in a cosmic battle, but in the revelation that he dies an honorable death, putting to rest the lie that crucifixion is humiliation. That is not a very good statement, because the lie is not that the lie problem in this gospel is not what she perceives it to be. But she makes it up to me at least, because here she quotes me. As Sigve Tonstad, in that book in 2008, concludes, Jesus' claim to triumph is theodicy, not soteriology. It isn't primarily the story of salvation, it is primarily a story of the kind of person God is. So I think her thinking is a little bit muddled here, but I am happy that we have seen something and that she is aware of the term the father of the lies. So where did that come from? Well, it comes from the Gospel of John. And here we have a text. I will read it and then I will comment on my illustrations in a moment. In the heat of battle with the Jewish religious leaders, as it is becoming evident that there is real, serious intent to do away with Jesus violently, to make him a victim of violence, Jesus will say, "You are from your father the devil, and you choose to do your father's desires." This is the devil. He was a murderer, a man-killer from the beginning, and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. Notice, Jesus is not here talking about the people who are his opponents primarily. He is primarily talking about the devil and the influence of the devil and the character of the devil, of Satan. He is a killing power. He is a manslayer, a murderer from the beginning. And he doesn't tell the truth. There is not one iota of truth in him. That is what he said, what Jesus says here. When he speaks the lie, he speaks according to his own nature. For a liar he is, and the father of it. And I have translated this myself, and I would like to fortify my translation here. When he speaks the lie, that is in the definite form. It is the lie, as though there is only one. The lie, definite, neutral, singular. He speaks according to his own. That is to say, his own nature, our translation says here. But it actually just says, he is entirely on his own. It is his invention. It is a view without any basis in reality. He is on his own when he does that. For a liar he is, and a father of the lie. So the terms we have, and the term I chose for my chapter, the father of lies, is a term from the Gospel of John, the father of the lie. The mother of the lie is my term for what he actually said. And as you can see, there are lots of things about the big lie here. I just Googled the big lie, and I got many books, many more than these. These are all different lies, and as people who live in America or are aware of what goes on in America, and most of us are, because we live in a global village, there is a contest in America today about a big lie. What was it? Something that happened in the last election. The big lie. Was the election stolen? Or is the big lie the claim that the election was stolen? There is a big contest about that. Now, let me tell you, there is a much bigger lie. There is a much bigger lie than any of these, and if you want to find it, we can find it. It is actually possible to find it. You can find it in this story in Genesis. He was a liar from the beginning. He was a manslayer from the beginning, and so on. So here, this is Lucas Cranach's illustration of the creation and the fall in Genesis. And we are most interested in two scenes here in this illustration. We are interested in this scene, what God says to Adam and Eve, the divine command. And we are interested in this scene, what the serpent says to Adam and Eve about the divine command. Those are our interests here. And let's look. Here is first the divine command, this scene here. And let's read it. And the Lord God commanded the man, you may freely eat of every tree in the garden, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day you eat of that you shall die the death. That is the divine command. So the accent here should be freedom. The accent here should be gift. And the idea, what is held back from them, what is that? Well, let's see. We go to the next scene. We go to what the serpent will say. That's the serpent. That's this scene here in Lucas Cranach's amazing painting. Now the serpent was more crafty than any of the wild animals the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, did God really say, you must not eat of any tree in the garden? And even though our memories are short, we do remember that, don't we? God had said, you may freely eat of every tree in the garden. Did God say, you must not eat of any tree? This is a misrepresentation of the divine command. This is throwing suspicion on the divine command. This is making the divine command out to be something it wasn't. And in my book, God of Sense and Traditions of Nonsense, I have a chapter devoted to a rather careful exposition of that story, and I show that the tenor of the divine command is not prohibition, it is permission, it is promotion, it is even protection. The tenor of the divine command is all good, and you might, so the misconstrual of the divine command is at the heart of this, and we see a suspicion now brewing in the minds of human beings in this story, that there is a generosity deficit in God. God is not a giving person. And there is a freedom deficit too. God is more interested in restriction than in freedom. And we know that humans in the story, as the story goes, they acted on that as though the serpent had, his misrepresentation was successful. It was in some ways a high quality lie. That's what we'll have to say about it. We are in the home stretch of our topic, Revelation as Salvation. And we are reading now more carefully the texts that I have read already, but I want to go through it in detail. Now is the critical moment of this world. Now the ruler of this world, also known as the father of the lie, he will be expelled. He will be exposed, laid bare, and stripped naked. He will be shown to be what Jesus calls him, a manslayer, a murderer from the beginning, and a liar, because he has said something about God that isn't true. And when I am lifted up from the earth, I will draw all men to myself. I will defeat the liar, and I will defeat his lie with what I am doing. He said this to signify the kind of death he was to die. And I am just so happy to have this illustration for this topic. This is a little known painting by a little known Norwegian painter named Henrik Sørensen. And this painting is exhibited not far from where we have lived for some years in Norway. This is a scene of Jesus in Gethsemane, and his soul is troubled, and he is going into battle. And this is the angel that comes and supports him, according to one of the synoptic stories. But there are some ugly things in the painting. Do you see that? See here, see this, like claws, like arms, like claws here. And there is another one here, hands rising up from the ground like claws, hostile influences. So this to me captures better than most paintings I have seen of this scene than just about any others, because most of the others don't see that. They do not see that Jesus is in combat with the father of the lie. He is in combat with the ruler of this world. And the ruler of this world thinks that the death of Jesus will ensure the defeat of Jesus. He doesn't understand that the death of Jesus will ensure his defeat, the defeat of the father of the lie. And I have one more presentation that will touch on some of these things. So if we don't see this completely now, we should be able to see it a little better after our next presentation. Here is Judith Kovacs again, taken together the sayings in 12, 31 to 32, 14, 30 to 31, and 16, 8 to 11, suggests that the fourth evangelist sees the death, resurrection, and ascent of Jesus as the turning point in the conflict between God and the forces of evil. One more time. Couldn't agree more. And here, from my own chapter, on my contribution to this subject, the identity of the agent and the purpose of his coming into the world. Identity of Jesus as someone who belongs to God's identity. And the purpose of his coming into the world are indissolubly linked. The revealer in the fourth gospel is revealing the glory of God, the truth about God. And the content of this revelation is especially important because it is set in a context where God's glory has been denied and his character smeared. He has been misrepresented, and Jesus will represent him, will reveal him. And when he is revealed, he will draw all people to himself. That's what we are seeing here. So, one more panel on this. Here Jesus is saying, Father, save me from this hour. No, it is for this reason that I have come to this hour. Notice that in 12:27. And then notice what he says to Pilate when he is on trial in chapters 18 and 19 in the presence of Pilate. Pilate asked him, so you are a king? Jesus answered, you say that I am a king. For this reason I was born, and for this purpose I came into the world, to testify to the truth. But this is not just any truth. It is truth in contrast to the lie. There was a lie, and now there is truth to refute the lie. And Pilate doesn't understand that. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice, Jesus says. And then Pilate, not understanding, says, what is truth? So we'll get to that again also later. The mood of the music in the Gospel of John, it's quite festive when you start at the wedding and there is wine and it's abundant and there is more it's a higher quality. And then we move through the story from wedding to well, and we move on to the story. And I am asking you, because I will repeat this illustration later, whether the mood of the music changes, or whether it just rises and rises and rises and rises to a higher point. We'll see. Let's do our retrospective. The hour in this gospel is clearly demarcated. We are on a journey that leads to the hour. The journey toward the hour begins at the wedding, the first time Jesus revealed his glory. If glory is related to reputation, and it is, and if the lie, and if God's reputation was damaged by the lie, and it was, John's theology of glory is first and foremost a theology of revelation. Revelation is what is needed. It fixes the problem as John sees it. When, as John claims, the ruler of this world was exposed, laid bare, and stripped naked, Jesus exposed and defeated the father of the lie. And two, he defeated the mother of lies. There is no generosity deficit in God. And finally, when I am lifted up from the earth on the cross, I will draw all people to myself, Jesus says. This is revelation as salvation.